I'm Nick, and this is Kenny. We're the Malt Vault. Strap on.
What are we drinking today, Nick?
The fabled past of Stroh's. A rags to riches to back to rags story.
Yeah. I think they're doing okay. I think their family's all right.
I guess. Maybe. We should maybe send a mental health check on them.
$400 million.
Yeah. Technically, it could have been like $9 billion if they didn't
That's the average.
ruin it.
Is that the average brew income?
Yeah. I called you Bernard because the guy who started Stroh's was Bernard Stroh.
Oh, I get it now.
I was saying because you're wearing that shawl that you're old. But you're not because you're younger than me.
I'm a little chilled.
When I hear Bernard, I think of the guy from the Santa
Claus.
The elf.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, I'll high five for the Santa Claus. Tim Allen, big fan. Classic Santa.
Ho, ho, ho. You're all doing a wonderful job.
What is that from?
Santa Claus.
The first
The
one?
second one.
Oh, okay.
When he makes the replica
Santa's
that's like
Revenge.
squeaky, wee, wee.
Is that his revenge?
No. I think he just had to have a wife, so he's like, I'll duplicate myself. And then that guy goes a little nuts.
I think some Hollywood executive
There's a lot of head on
just
that.
needed another note.
Strange because I'm drinking out of a BJ's glass. There's a lot of head.
Jesus. This beer's not bad.
Yeah.
Really?
This is the first time I had this, yeah.
So this is what we're drinking is Stroh's Classic. It's about as classic as your grandmother's Studebaker. When I was researching that and how old the beer is and like what it reminded me of when I tried it, I started thinking of like, wow, like what are old cars' names? And then I went down this tangent in my research of like, look at all these sexually suggestive names of cars.
It's like
listen to some of these. Ready? Mitsubishi Topo BJ. Topo, Toppo, BJ.
Like Topo Space.
Yeah.
Is that the
And
Japanese thing?
a Ford Probe, which we've all seen a Ford Probe. Daihatsu Naked, and then everyone's fan favorite, the Hummer.
I got a Hummer from a once. I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah. I just
That's
when I was
derogatory.
looking up
For you.
old beer or car names, I was like, some of these are very sexually subjective or suggestive.
You just got smacked with a De Wulanis, motherfucker.
I thought
Pineapple Express.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna go with car names from Gone in 60 Seconds, where they have that whiteboard or the blackboard.
Shelby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the last one he was trying to get?
Oh gosh. Hold on.
The last one was a Shelby. It just had
Yeah, it was a
name.
Shelby Mustang Eleanor.
That's right.
Eleanor.
Good call.
Like Roosevelt. Big
oh my god.
That's from Wedding Crashers.
Yep.
Just for anybody listening.
Yeah, we can't just
I'm
say
not
any quotes though and say that was in a movie.
true.
Okay,
Oddly enough, though, earlier today, when you just said you just got hit with a Daewoo Lano, you know what?
De Wulanis.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
But I quoted that same movie today when I woke up
it's a
and
quotable movie.
time to suck today's
Yeah, that's the student.
insert
That's
BJ.
right. So we're doing Stroh's, right?
Yep.
Who's got,
1775 is when it started.
okay. Who has the untapped score on it?
I do.
Okay.
So hold on. This gets a 3.03. This is where
That's higher than Yingling Light.
yes, by 0.4.
So people say that it tastes better than Yingling
0.04.
Light.
Yeah. It actually doesn't have a disclosed IBU, but it's a 4.6%. When I first found this in the wild, Kenny had said, "Oh my God, I've never seen that can." Well,
Which is a thing.
strangely enough, there's only been 121 ratings on Untapped for
Yeah.
this, so it's a very well kept secret of vintage proportions.
Well, I think that so what I was reading was I'd heard of Stroh's, and I have like a Stroh's sign that I got, like an old Stroh's sign, but I didn't know anything about it, and I don't see it. It's not like a Schlitz or like an old Milwaukee that's sitting out there. But they are like the parent company to Old Milwaukee. They have a lot of subsidiary companies that are underneath them. They're like the head dog, but I've never seen like this. You know, this
In
is
the
like
wild.
seeing a car made by GM.
My grandfather
but
loves-
you don't see a car made by GM. You see Chevys, Pontiacs, and right. So
Yeah.
but to see I didn't know that they even made a beer just called Stroh. I mean, I guess I'd seen it, but
Stroh's.
I thought it wasn't in production anymore. That's what I'm getting
So,
at.
again, this is another derivative. Bernard Stroh immigrated from where other than Germany.
Every beer.
Yep. So
Stays with my...
moves to Detroit, Michigan. He was originally selling this in a wheelbarrow. Mm-hmm. He brewed it in his basement in Detroit, Michigan, which is probably the most Detroit thing that you can do is you brew it in your basement and you sell it in a wheelbarrow.
How many wheelbarrows are in
Cue
Detroit?
Monty Python. I don't know, but he must have had a lot.
Less now.
It was originally a family owned, and their headquarters in LA now. Just fun fact on that one.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but they're technically they're a held company by Pabst.
Yeah.
Now
it's kind of silly. The history I have on it was founded in 1850 by Bernard Stroh as a family-owned brewery, and it did very well until 1999. Is what I have. There wasn't much controversy as far as anything they were doing in the 1980s. So in 85, Stroh's had bought up a lot of like small breweries that were going out, like fledgling competitors. It grew too big, too fast, struggled with its own company, and then they had to close their original Detroit facility, saying it was costly to run. I mean, it's 1985. They'd been in the same spot.
It needed to expand from what I read, and they couldn't expand in the area they were in, and it couldn't be renovated. So they basically said, screw this pooch, we're out.
Like Gremlins.
Yeah. 1850 is when they added the lion, this really heraldic lion that you see here from the Kyrberg Castle out of Bavaria.
The Express Summer Edition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the
Summer
Express
Edition.
Lion.
The Express.
Yeah, like the
Like from the clothing company,
Yeah.
Express?
Yeah.
That's the same lion?
I don't know it. All lions look the same, right? Whenever you use a lion for a logo, it's that.
This one's got its tongue out with a crown on it. So
Unless you're MGM.
it's like Aslan.
From
Chronicles of
Lion, the
Narnia.
Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, that lion.
Sick reference.
Also,
Nice.
in 1850, they're kind of, I don't know that it's necessarily any ingredient difference, but they brew it in copper kettles.
As opposed to wheelbarrows or what?
They sell it in wheelbarrows.
Are most of them made in copper kettles?
I don't know.
Kenny says yes.
Yeah. I mean, but think about that. He delivered it
Think
in
about a brass kettle.
he delivered it in
iron.
wheelbarrows. So he's probably like a cooler milkman.
I get it.
When did milkmen start?
When's my beer man going to be here? My baby looks an awful lot like my beer man.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
that's cooler. That's like not as problematic as the milkman.
Yeah. Well, and just like with your milk bottles, you had to return your beer bottles too, because most of them were actually owned by the breweries in the early 1900s. When you buy a bottle of beer or you buy a case of beer, right? Mm-hmm. The bottle you didn't own. You only were allowed to drink the beer, and you had to give the bottle back. It like had it stamped on there, not
To return, not
owned
for
by seller, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
Which
I
is
didn't
silly.
know that.
So I have 1985. That's when they had to shut down their Detroit facility. It cost 1,100 jobs to Detroiters. That's not good. They turned their back on their hometown. They shut down a lot of jobs there.
You said jobs. And then there's a
is that
BJ's
a trigger?
cup.
But I didn't say hand.
Oh.
Yeah, not in the same sentence. You're right. That's
So
a good catch.
I'm still alive. 2 points to Gryffindor. In 1999 was the year the company was still struggling. They split up and they were sold to Miller and Pabst. They were disbanded. It was gone.
So what I read before we have to do a go back, they sold their holdings because they had all these holdings from all these other companies that they had bought. They sold them off brand by brand. So Miller only got like Schlitz malt liquor and some other things.
Henry Weinard's and Mickey's malt liquor.
Yeah, Mickey's. That's what I meant.
Oh, Mickey's
malt.
nice.
Mickey's malt.
That's an old. You
Edward.
still see that.
40 hands. That's what you go with usually. Well, sometimes.
Well,
Mickey's.
or you do Colt 45, which is actually now a Pabst situation.
Yeah, it was owned by Stroh's.
Did you ever have Bull? Red Bull?
Did you call Red Bull Bull in a slang term? And I was supposed to know that?
Wait, no way.
Did you say, have you had Bull? Like, can I have a vodka Bull? Is that what they say?
I don't know.
Hold on, no.
Have you ever had?
No, you can't skip past this.
Yeah, do you want me to pull up the tape or what?
Yeah, rewind that shit. Did you say pull like a bull?
No, bull like Ferdinand the Bull.
There's a beer called Bull?
Yeah, but it's the Red Bull, and it's a bulldog that's red. That was owned by Schlitz originally.
Oh, you're talking about Red Dog beer, right? Yes. Yeah, Red Dog.
My dad used to drink that.
Yeah.
in the
Red Dog.
90s.
But
What are you saying, Bull?
there was a beer that they owned called Bull, and there's also
hold
a
on.
Bull Ice.
Keep talking. Go,
talking.
Take it.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, Nick,
what are you doing, Kenny? If you have a beer of that, then I'm not drinking it.
Nick's going to read a
This
poem.
is not going from a basement. I'm not basement beering this again. So family owned since the 18th century, derived from the Rhineland. Also in 1902, Julius Stroh, he actually went to a famous European brewers, and he learned to flame heat with direct flame the brewing process, and as opposed to what most people were doing in the United States was steam. So maybe it gives it more of that copper taste that you taste right now.
Like a malt. Caramel malt.
Caramel malt.
Caramel malt.
Yeah, but I think it brings out more flavor. But they used I mean, I don't know who uses a fired, a direct flame to brew their beer now as opposed to steam, but
Do you like this beer?
it's okay.
Seth, did you get a taste of it yet?
Yeah, this is the first time I've
Ever had it?
ever had it.
Same.
And granted, I've seen that sign so many times and I never connected two and two. I was
No.
like, oh, we're drinking that, and that's on the sign. I'm an idiot. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I would rather have a Yingling, but
Yeah.
I would rather have.
Yingling's kind of the paradigm of American beer, so
I think that word may work there. Yeah. So
yeah, it's the model behavior.
the Paragon.
Paradigm, not paragon. They're not origami.
Parrot.
Gorlami.
Your brain's frying again.
Yeah.
Paradigm just reminds me of like that Cinedigm. Like if you go see a movie in the theaters
Yeah.
and they go, you know, the DHX surround sound or DTX. That's what I think
THX.
when I think of Paradigm. You'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this tastes like a better college beer,
Yeah.
I would say.
It's like a dad beer.
I mean, you get
This
it.
is the beer your dad drank in the 80s, right?
Yeah. That and Schlitz and Augsburger if you're in Columbus.
Old Milwaukee.
Old Milwaukee. Old Milwaukee
Yeah.
Ice, which my dad still probably drinks.
But we can all agree, like from having one of our dad's beers,
Hi, Dad.
that we can all agree that having one of our dad's beers,
God.
they taste better than like Bud Light and like watered down stuff. Like, right, this
Yeah.
is like the company says that this beer is, where did I have it? Right here. Meant to be enjoyed during a hot summer day or at the end of a long shift. And they're not even really pushing that advertising that much. But that's what it is, right? It's like an Old Milwaukee. You've seen your grandpa carry this can around a bunch. They actually went back to this. This is like the same labels and stuff that they had in the 80s, and they're just going after that branding now. So
Makes sense.
yeah, but the company itself, yeah, they had to sell off in 1999 and get split up, and all their subsidiaries went to basically Miller or Pabst, with Pabst getting the bulk of them. Pabst got Old Milwaukee, like Milwaukee's Best Ice, the Stroh's brand that we're drinking here, Heilman Old Style, and Colt 45 malt liquor.
Yes.
As part of that deal, Pabst got to take over production at the Stroh's Brewery in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, which I think we're going to talk about Pabst later, but that actually saved Pabst a little bit too because they needed to increase their size.
distribution.
They were on the way up, Stroh's was on the way down, and they met in the middle and switched those out. And it was really weird. I read that as part of this complex deal, Miller Coors also decided they would help produce more Pabst Blue Ribbon at their facilities. So
Did you
Miller
know-
and Pabst
did you-
came in, split up Stroh's, dissected them, took what they wanted, and then Miller and Pabst agreed, well, as part of this deal, you can increase our production at your facilities too.
Did you know that
Just
Miller
a mess.
or Coors was in a deal to buy Stroh's first, and they backed out of the deal? Which is weird because Miller and Coors are now the same.
Oh, so this was before the Miller Coors.
Yeah, because that happened like recently.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so Coors was actually going to buy them, and then for like 425 is all it says. I'm assuming that's million.
It was 425 million. Yeah.
I did want to throw some more stuff at the Prohibition.
Yeah, go ahead with.
So
I don't have any notes.
Julius, the same guy who went to Europe.
Orange?
Yeah, not Orange Julius.
Orange Julius.
Julius Stroh.
Caesar.
He changed the company name to Stroh Products Company during Prohibition, and they did like soft drinks, near beer, birch beer. They did malts.
Energy drinks?
No. They distributed ice and ice cream, though, which, again, was popular. I alluded to earlier in the Yingling episode that Stroh's ice cream actually was still going until 2007. And then it was moved to Illinois. So I don't know if it's been sold or if they still make it, but Stroh's actually has an ice cream that was pretty popular into the millennium. They had a statewide, the biggest problem that they had to start in 1958, there was a statewide strike in Michigan, and that was probably Stroh's first downfall, because after that, they started buying the competition in the 60s, and that's when like their expansion was like really growing. But everything that I have read about the downfall of the Stroh's empire of that family and their brewery was a very costly acquisition to Schlitz and all of their brands. Everything that I read, it was a very like not tumultuous, but it was a lengthy process that threw a lot of money for litigation and how they were supposed to do things. Because like essentially, what actually had to happen, they had to agree to sell 2 of their plants when they acquired them. So they had to sell 2 of these Schlitz plants in order for the deal to go through. So like there was a lot of like subsidiaries that were happening in the background of this acquisition of Schlitz. And that was where they put a lot of their money and effort into, and then they never recovered.
So sum that up.
I'm trying to... Okay.
It was just it was a very complex, extremely complex
deal. It was a very
deal.
extremely complex acquisition that cost time and money.
Yeah.
And ultimately they could not recover.
That's depressing.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's probably the testament to don't get big too fast, like you said earlier. They're faster, like don't expand if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. Like you try to match the demand, but the demand is constantly changing. But you don't want to have too much or too little.
Yeah.
Currently, it's brewed out of a Pabst Brewing Complex in Milwaukee. Just last summer, so summer of 2022, they returned to selling Stroh's, this one, in drafts in the Midwest area, primarily around Detroit. So we could probably find a Stroh's on tap near us if we wanted. They hadn't done that for a long time.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Since like 1999, so 30 years or 24 years or whatever that is. They're returning more to simple 1980s style packaging and can designs, like I was talking about with the going back to these kind of logos and styling.
Do you want to know about the output?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
1971. This is when they started becoming the top 10 distributors in the United States.
Yeah.
Their slogan was "That one beer," and that's all it took.
That one beer.
That one beer.
Just that one.
Yeah. And then they went more corporate, so they started. This was like in their expansion era, like right before they, like late 80s is when they tried to tackle getting Schlitz. But they brought in managers from Procter & Gamble and PepsiCo.
To kind of help with the
trying to
distribution
help
and
with
stuff.
the advertising and distribution. And they went from more family-owned, like what Yingling does, to more corporate. And I think that their expansion...
That's public.
Yeah.
Nice.
They were 7th in sales in 1981. They could, so it was kind of like a dual-edged sword. Like they expanded to make all the extra distribution because in 1981 they could do volume over 40 million a year barrels.
Yeah, but they didn't have the demand for it.
But they didn't have the demand. Well, I don't know that. I don't know.
40 million a barrel is a lot.
I don't know. I wasn't around then, but the fact that they could do that's nice. But like, I don't know if It was 7th in sales, so clearly it was doing fine.
But Yingling's doing what, 27 million barrels a year, I think is what you had said.
But
the other day.
82 is when they started to acquire. They put in a bid for 67%
They
of
just started
Schlitz.
buying too much stuff.
Yeah. Well, honestly, everything that I've read, like it was fine up until that point. But when they started adding Schlitz and then they got into like a long plan for that, that's when it went down because there was an antitrust law. So what I said earlier, DOJ said that they had to agree to sell the Memphis or the Winston-Salem plant. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They had to sell both of those plants in order for the deal to go through.
I was going to say, I thought they were getting into cigarette sales.
85, you said, is when the Eastside Brewery in
That's when they
Michigan
decided to shut down, which turned into Brewery Park now, which I don't know if that's a ballpark or not. I didn't look into that. But
and then basically Peter Stroh, the one at the time, he tried to sell it to Coors and the deal fell through. And then
that was before 99. That was
this is kind of funny. They also tried to develop a White Mountain cooler. That's a tough look.
What does that mean?
Like a wine cooler?
Yeah.
You don't do it from a dad beer company to a wine cooler company that quick.
And then they sold their ice cream to Dean Foods, as you do.
Who's Dean Foods?
Is that the Schwan Man?
Maybe.
Everybody get the Schwan Man?
Dean Foods.
I don't know.
Like Cliff Dean? Or Dean Cain?
Dean Cain. What's he from?
Superman. Well, Lois and Clark.
Then 90s, that's really when it was getting really shitty. They tried to redevelop their business strategy. So he went these were his 3. Develop new beer. So they went through like a rapid expansion of trying all this specialty beer to try to get
like craft brewery a little bit.
Kinda. I don't know if it was necessarily craft. It was just specialty beer.
Yeah.
And then they brewed under contract of other breweries, a.k.a. they tried to, hey, you can brew our beer. We don't want to brew it ourselves, but you can brew our beer.
Cost. Yeah,
so they were trying to take off some of the overhead and then expand overseas. So they actually targeted like Canada, India, Japan, Mexico, Russia.
I think they just had their heyday.
India, actually, it was pretty successful in India, they said. India was pretty successful as well as Japan. They got into bed with Sapporo.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Sapporo? When you go to like a Japanese steakhouse?
Yeah.
So they had some
feel crazy
Sapporo
at the corner store.
would actually distribute that Stroh's in Japan.
Huh.
And then there was another one that I wrote down, but I couldn't pronounce from India.
I just feel like theory-wise, it seems like a lot of work. Like let's get into the Indian market, and I'm like, I've personally been drinking beer for like 20 years, and I don't know. I've never seen a Stroh's, so like for sale. Like I'm pretty sure that you are punking me, and this is from your basement.
Subsequent question. India has a lot of people, right?
Right, but like to have a
but
company that I've
caste
never seen your
system.
product in America, and it's America. Personally, maybe you're from Detroit and you see it everywhere, but I feel like living in the Midwest, I should see a popular Midwest beer here on our shelves that has been around forever. And they're concerning themselves with, let's get into the Indian market.
Well, that was the
Japanese
90s.
Steakhouse. Yeah, that's fair. I wasn't drinking.
Japanese steakhouse.
I wasn't drinking beer in the 90s.
So I did see people say that they started the microbrewery revolution in the 90s, but
I said that.
I know, but I'm saying other people said that I was reading about. So they share your sentiment.
I should be writing.
I thought
things.
that's pretty cool. But they were big. You know how I said like their strategy changed and they were really pushing like developing new specialty beers.
Yeah.
They really like spearheaded like the ice situation. So like how you have a Milwaukee's Best Ice.
Oh, like
Schlitz Ice, Stroh's Ice,
they capitalized on the
Bull Ice.
alcoholism.
They were like let's get people
not
drunker
if you drink
faster.
ice as you are an alcoholic. Maybe you just
you just want more.
Maybe the small stomach crowd. They're like, I can only have one beer. I wish it was stronger. Yeah, right.
From inside.
Just tuck. So
Yeah.
I don't have any preconceived notions about Stroh's. I don't have any major controversies. I enjoy it. It tastes good. If you see it, it's worth a shot trying out. I wouldn't buy a whole rack, but I'd buy, a 6
If
or
you
a
buy an
12-pack.
18-pack, it's $16.
It's not any better. Like
less than
Seth
$1
said,
beer.
it's not any better than Yingling. I would just buy Yingling and continue to support them. It's fine. It's kind of like a has-been, I think, at this point, unfortunately. Hard take, but
Memory lane.
yeah, it's just
For not us, because
I like the going back to the 80s. That's cool, but I've had
That's
it now. I
in
can
right
say I've
now.
had a Stroh's, but I'm not going to buy it personally. That's my review of the beer. It tastes good, but it's nothing better than Yingling.
Seth, what are your thoughts?
I was still thinking about last episode when we were talking about how radon gas is a myth.
That brings up a good point. So
It's unicorn dust.
Kenny just leaned in. He wants to talk about this.
I was at a
It's
bar,
unicorn dust. I'm a passionate believer in anti-radon sentiments.
What about Krypton?
but
That's my weakness. No, radon is a joke, right? I don't know.
I don't.
speaking of jokes,
I got to see the science.
behind it.
Do you know the science?
Do you believe the science?
They say that cancer is the leading killer of people.
Yeah.
And right, well, and they say radon gas accounts for, I think it was like 14% of cancers.
Okay.
But there's not much like science, like
Evidence.
They say if you spend a ton of time in a basement that isn't radon filtered, it's bad for your health. Like if you have a bedroom basement. But Brett Maynard lived in his parents' basement.
He seems fine.
He seems good.
Sample size 1 of 1.
100% on the
Statement of fact.
But have you ever seen them install a radon system? Or do you know
Yeah,
what
I
one
have.
is? Do you know what one is? It's a pipe
That just
that
filters it up.
It's with like a $4, fan that blows the air from your basement out the roof.
How
of
do
your
they
house.
test that?
They put on this little.
Oh, we went up to the
It's like the-
attic, and now the attic's got a lot of radon.
No, it blows it out of the top of the house. Like it's just this ugly white
That's
pipe
cute.
that goes up the side of your house. Anyone who has had to sell a house or buy a house in the last 10 years knows because they've paid $4,000 to get a radon system installed or made the seller, at it.
I was in a
I
bar
hate it.
once.
I hate it.
I was in a bar once, and
Fucking hate radon.
3 conspiracy theorists walked into the bar. Tell me that's not a coincidence.
I see what you're saying. I get it. The slim pickings.
Hey,
Thanks for
what?
joining us this week as we talk about Stroh's.
good.
Yeah,
head.
don't waste your money.